Well, let's start with Misrata. I know that the government has arranged for 2 groups of buses to go to Misrata in the past, but in the 2 most recent weeks that I've been here, and in the 2 that I spent here before that, I've repeatedly requested access to Misrata so that we can see with our own eyes what's happening there. Why have we not been taken to Misrata?
Well, Jonathan, the security conditions of Misrata are very difficult. I mean, we did try to take journalists there, and not just twice, by the way, a few times. We did try to help smaller groups of journalists to go there. We tried with the big groups as well. But we're not denying that it's been very difficult for us to secure trips to Misrata. We are not hiding anything, Jonathan. We are fighting a war against armed gangs that occupied our cities. And we do believe that the world needs to see what is happening in Misrata. But every time we take journalists there, we are faced with fire, with bullets, with attacks by the rebels and the army. We admitted this before. Our army has not been trained to lead and protect journalists into dangerous zones. I realize some journalists we have here are war correspondents and are used to such situations. But unfortunately, our army, our security forces are not trained to lead journalists into battle. But I promise you, as we have tried before, we will try again to lead and take journalists into Misrata. We have helped the Red Cross and the United Nations to go into Misrata and judge and assess the situation there for themselves. We are opening a safe passage, overland passage to Misrata to help bring in a humanitarian aid. But what we are faced with there is quite powerful pockets of violence supported by weapons and trainers who come from Benghazi and funded by Qatar and other countries. And they are not allowing us any peace there. We did ask officially for a ceasefire in Misrata, specifically in Misrata, so we could help evacuate people, provide them with food, with medicine, fuel, and all the needs.
Do you think it's important that journalists go and see what's happening in Misrata?
You know, you've always heard me saying that we need experts and we need observers and fact-finding missions. This is not to belittle the media. I am a media guy, and I believe that yes, journalists should be taken not just into Misrata, but into all areas in which we have trouble in this country. I try to negotiate with the army, and sometimes they feel they can help us and lead journalists into the battlefield, but sometimes they're so terrified of what might happen to these journalists. They say, no, we can't take responsibility. But I assure you, we're trying our best. And remember, we're not denying that even at peace times, we did not have the freedom of press that we were hoping for, let alone war times. We can't change now and have completely free press and free access to everyone. This was a process, Jonathan, that we started in Libya years ago. I joined this process, and that was the reason I came back from London, is to have more freedom of the press and help develop our media institutions. And we were doing quite well until the armed rebellion started. Now, actually, we do feel that this progressive process has been taken away from us because of the armed rebellion. Before, it was a peaceful process, gradual and from within Libya. Now it's violent, it's sudden, and it comes from outside Libya with international agendas. So when I talk to the government and I talk to my colleagues and the army, it's not for them the time now to suddenly have completely free access for the international media. For them, they're not used to that. They are not used. I need to talk to them and negotiate things, but they are not, I assure you, trying to hide anything whatsoever. Misrata is our city. We're concerned for what's happening there, and we want the world to see.
Those words, "we're not trying to hide anything," are ringing in my ears, because I have been held under what I consider to be virtual house arrest in this hotel, unable to see anything. What are you trying to hide?
Jonathan, it's not really accurate description, is it? You do go out, and we do take you to neighborhoods.
We only go out to places that you want us to see, to green demonstrations.
Not exactly accurate again, Jonathan. You do go around and drive around with our minders and the interpreters and our drivers. Yes, I know this. As I said, Jonathan, and I did express this before, I don't think it's an ideal situation for journalists who want to really dig deep into the reality of the situation and report on it. I know this. I admit that we are not giving you complete free access. We have problems with the media, and as I said, we were developing and changing, and now this war comes in and stops and halts everything.
We are not free, as Saif al-Gaddafi said we should be, to go and talk to people. We have not seen the real Libya. We're stuck in this hotel.
What Mr. Saif said was a genuine wish on his side to have free press, free access to journalists everywhere in Libya. But this is not an easy thing to do, because you are dealing with both the way Libyan institutions are established and the way they treat and feel towards journalists, and also the society itself. You have to remember, change doesn't have to happen only in the government institutions, but the society itself. People are weary of the media, especially international media. And institutions are weary of the media as well. So if I could coordinate something with the army, I might not be able to coordinate that thing with the police force, or with the Ministry of Health, or with the Ministry of Education, or with the Ministry of Oil. You are asking us to make a fundamental intellectual, political, and social change within a very short time. This is very difficult, and I see this. I lived in Britain. I know how important freedom of the press is, but I look at my country, at the institutions, at ordinary people, and I know that the change cannot happen from the top. It needs to happen within these institutions of Libya and within the mentality of ordinary people. This takes time. We are fighting to change. We feel this armed rebellion is not helping us change. It made us even more wary of change. We were changing. Libya was in the process of implementing a written constitution, freedom of the press laws, new ones, more transparent political system, anti-corruption laws. We were a little bit on the slow side in the last year or so. That's correct. But we were moving forward, no doubt about this. Now war, you can't change during the time of war, because at the time of war, people are scared, they are afraid, they are not sure about things, they prefer to take a step back and watch. So I understand when Libyan institutions and ordinary people say to me, no, we can't have the media. Well, I don't want to receive the media, stop the media. I don't agree, but I know why they are saying that. As a matter of fact, Jonathan, I say this. When we agreed to the African roadmap, it includes a transitional period in which we are hoping that such progressive changes would be implemented, especially freedom of the press. We are hoping then people will be relaxed, peace will be established around the country, national dialogue taking place, and then people will feel happy about freedom of the press and inviting international media. But before that, it's a very hard job for me as the government spokesperson and the coordinator of the Foreign Press Center here at Rexos. Do you see where I'm going? I agree, I'm agreeing with you. But at the same time, I would like you to understand, you can't make these radical changes at a time of war, when people are afraid, suspicious, and they'd rather take a step back and be cautious than adventure, if you like.
Look, I mean, that answer preempted one of the things I was going to ask you about, all those years you spent in the UK at Exeter University, going on to do the media studies doctorate, and those 15 years of being in a democratic society with total press freedom. it must have come as a bit of a shock to you to not only arrive in a country where those institutions are, in a sense, are deeply repressive, but with your own desire, as you say, to see things open up, to now be confronted with all these journalists who are going completely stir crazy in here, unable. I mean, how does that make you feel?
Well, Jonathan, to start with, I love many things about Britain, and I think it's a progressive society, but I'm also critical about things there. I know how important capital in Britain is, and I know how big corporations control many things in the country, and I do not accept everything that takes place in Britain, but in essence, I think it's a free society, it's democratic society, and it allows human beings to be creative. We need to establish similar things in Libya, and that was the very reason I came back a year ago to join this process. And
but did you not feel like throwing the towel in now that you've seen what it's like?
No, actually, if I'm angry, Jonathan, I'm angry at the armed rebellion, not the government, because the only guilt from me, the only mistake the Libyan government committed is the slow rhythm of change that dominated the Libyan scene in the last year.
From outside, it looked like zero.
Not really, no. Believe me, we started to have more room for criticism. I was heading a center, a media center, that owned newspapers, magazines, TV stations, radio stations, websites. And when I first came, I noticed the change immediately. We were allowed to talk, we were allowed to criticize, we were allowed to suggest change, to propose a different society. And many hundreds of writers, journalists, artists were really happy that this was the case. Last year, for example, I helped produce 25 plays, more than 50 songs, 40 exhibitions for photography and painting. We printed many books, published many books. You know, we are doing quite well, and people were critical of the government, of the state, of the situation Libya was in. They were proposing ideas for change. They were complaining about the slow rhythm of change. But we were all hopeful and feeling that there was something in the air. We did not expect an armed rebellion. Now we are threatened with a civil war, foreign military intervention, the total collapse of the country. It's for us very sad. I would love to deal. For me, it's easier to deal with the slow rhythm than to deal with this situation.
Well, look, one of the experiences that I had, which has really stayed with me, was when that woman, Eman al-Obeidi, burst into our hotel here, and told a very tragic story of what had happened to her. And you know, in front of all the international journalists, that they attempted to silence her. It looked like a barroom brawl. I was punched in the face myself. Other journalists were thrown around. We weren't even allowed to talk to this woman. What do you make of her story, and where is she now?
Well, I made enough comments on Eman al-Obeidi's story. I think she's a woman who maybe went through a trauma, and she felt that she needed to make it as big as possible, maybe possibly political. I mean, she claims that she was kidnapped and raped. This happens anywhere in the world. She should have gone to a police station, to the court, and she should have followed the course of justice. She chose to go political with this. I cannot find any political elements in her story whatsoever.
But before we knew anything about it, you were saying
absolutely.
That she was drunk,
Jonathan,
mentally imbalanced,
I talked to you. I said two things. First of all, we cannot get into the details of her story because we are a very conservative society. This woman has a child. We need to protect the child's identity and future. She has sisters, brothers, family, and we are a very conservative society. We cannot speak about the details of this case. But I did personally apologize for all journalists for the way our security elements dealt with them. I apologized personally to a few of you who were punched in the face or their cameras were broken. I felt, that the way we behaved was completely wrong. Yes, the woman was not allowed to come into the hotel, but this is hardly a crime, and they should have asked her to leave, and not to deal roughly with the journalists. But this shows you again that yes, we do need to change. Yes, we do need to accept the international media, and we need to change the way people think, the mentality of ordinary people. Jonathan, there is something that people forget. People think that democracy comes if it changes the government. But I assure you, democracy is ideas. The Libyan government, the state, is much more democratic and progressive than ordinary Libyan people in many ways. Just as ordinary Libyan people are more aggressive and democratic in other elements, in other ideas. For example, the way we see women, the way we look at women and the issue of women, the state has been much more aggressive than the society, the Libyan society. The way we view religion, the state has been much more progressive than society. But when it comes to, for example, freedom of expression, then society becomes more aggressive, more progressive than the state. So it is not just a matter of changing the top, if you like. It's a very complicated process, democracy. You need to change society itself. I believe what happened with Eman al-Obeidi and the way our security elements treated you guys is not because just of them being officials or belonging to the government, but because of the very mentality of the Libyan society. A woman comes in, claims that she was raped, talks about it in detail. For our society, this is very shameful. And the men we had here in this hotel did not have the respect that they should have had for this woman. They treated her as if she was a low woman and did not respect her rights, did not respect her, the situation she was in. I talked to them, by the way. The way they talked to me and the way they explained their action just proved to me it's the mentality of the society, not just the government.
After the incident, you told me, you apologized, and I appreciated that, but you told me that some of the minders who were particularly violent in the response would be fired.
Yeah.
And I came back recently to find Jalal al-Traika, who is the man, with the
yeah, I know him, yes. Yeah.
He's now my new best friend because he's been my personal minder as we've gone around. We did fire 3 of the security. Has Jalal been rehabilitated?
He was one of them. These people are not under my command, okay? But I talked to the proper authorities. They did punish them. They did fire them. And now you are telling me, actually after you told me, Jonathan, I only noticed his presence in the hotel. Because as you know, I'm a little
we'd
bit
been aware of it from day one when
yeah.
he was manhandling us.
But they have been warned and they have been blamed for the incident, and the proper authorities talk to them, and hopefully they will behave better now. But make no mistake, they were punished for it, and hopefully they know better now, if you like.
How do you think Western journalists have been behaving? No, behaving is the wrong word. Have been reporting all of what's been happening. I mean, you talk about the minders, but what about the journalists? You sometimes stand here and lecture us about our unprofessionalism.
I do, don't I? Well, I think, Jonathan, people come to this country, journalists, with preconceptions. They are anti-Gaddafi, anti-Libya as a government, pro-democracy. And this idea, for me, veils their vision. It doesn't allow them to see the complexity of the Libyan situation. So they see this dictator, people rebelling against the dictator. The situation for them is very simple. You side with the people revolting or rebelling against the dictator. Many of them do not sit down and see how complicated the situation is. They don't see that it's very possible that this rebellion is not pro-democracy, but it's for wealth and power, and that maybe the true and genuine pro-democracy people are siding with Gaddafi, with the dictator, if you like, because these people just happen to believe that this dictator, again, is just a safety valve, a unifying figure for the country. We need to have him there to lead the country peacefully and gradually towards change, because the alternative would be for tribes to fight against each other, for al-Qaeda to come in and establish itself in the country, for the country to collapse and be divided into many little pieces, just like it happened in Iraq, in Somalia, in Afghanistan. We are, Jonathan, pro-democracy. We want to establish a transparent, free political system in Libya. We do not support a family that wants to control the future of the country. We want the Libyan people to choose their political system and the leaders of this political system. But what this armed rebellion is doing is something completely different. These people want power and wealth, and they want to do it with any way possible. They are sacrificing our kids. They are inviting foreign armies to come into the country. They are fighting among each other. Many of them, Jonathan, were part of the system for decades. Many of these people, my record is cleaner than them. I joined the regime a year ago. These people, the so-called pro-democracy in the east of the country, some of them served the regime for 30 years, for 40 years. They are part of any crimes the regime committed against Europe, against the international community. I'm cleaner than them. I joined the regime a year ago to help lead the peaceful democratic process forward. So the journalists need to understand the complexity of the situation. The other thing is, the idea of a liberator does not exist in Europe anymore, because you guys had your liberation, 200 years ago. Gaddafi, for many people, came to this country, liberated it from foreign occupation, foreign influence, and most importantly, he helped the Libyans acquire their wealth back, oil, because oil from 1970 became Libyan oil. And through the Libyan oil, we were able to have a revolution in education, in health, in transport.
But that could have happened under anyone.
Yeah, but this was important. Libya was a very, very backward society, and it was starving society. With the revolution, it helped to make Libya a very wealthy, quite advanced country in many ways. Still, we're not saying that we should not change and have democracy, but Muammar Gaddafi became a figure of this country. He unified the tribes and made sure that peace exists in the country. And now we are asking him, and he agreed to this, to lead us forward towards democracy, gradually, peacefully, and from within. Many people find this acceptable. They like it the way it is. If democracy takes 10 or 15 years or even 20 years to come to us, why not? Especially we know that to have democracy, we need to change people's mentality, the society, which is a huge task. I mean, you could easily change the government or the laws, but how would you change the way people view women, for example? How would you change the way people view religion in Libya? How would you change the way people view foreigners? That's a major task.
There's lots of what you say I don't contest, and I really truly understand that it is far more complex than the black and white that some of us may portray it as. I've got to say though, I've got to hand it to you as a communicator, as a government spokesman, but as a spin doctor. Where did you learn your tricks?
I spent my 15 years in Britain cycling, fighting for peace. I was a very active pro-peace activist. I cycled for the environment. I cycled the whole length of Britain, from London to Edinburgh, for the environment. I cycled the length of Thames for the environment. I was a member of every single debate society, political society you can imagine. I loved my life in Britain, and it did really shape who I am now. So you could say that you taught me how to be a spin doctor. The British society, the British way, the British, and by the way, I was under, the whole time I was in Britain, it was Labour, and Labour are the masters of, spinning the truth and playing with...
So it is a sort of admission that that's in fact what you're doing.
No, I do believe in what I'm doing. I honestly and genuinely believe in the moral position I have taken. I'm not doing this as a job. I'm not doing it because I'm faithful to a one person, namely the leader. I'm not doing it because I belong to the same tribe the leader belongs to, as it has been suggested. I just happen to belong to the same tribe. I do it genuinely and honestly because I believe it's the moral choice. I believe Libya has to remain united, peaceful, and that change has to happen, but from within, peacefully and gradually. As simple as that, Jonathan.